In Affinity Photo, like many other apps, you can create lovely glass distortion effects, maybe nice straight line effects like this, a diagonal line effect. This is for PC or Mac, and it's the displace filter in Affinity Photo. And I'm just going to show you some easy techniques to create some interesting designs. So let's just cancel that. Here's the original image. And with this, I've got some background layers here. And I'm just going to remove that one. And you can see this one is a blurring effect. This is a layer effect that you can add, a live layer, which you can modify at any point. And also with all these layers, you can remove them. But why do I need these layers below the image itself? Well, that's what the displace uses. So it uses anything that's below. It can also use images that are external as well. You can open a file, but I'm just going to go with files that I've got here, and I'm going to use them as a layer. And in this case, a pattern. So let's just click here. And this is the design I used to create that diagonal line effect. So I've got this image here, and I can now turn this very quickly into a pattern. And that doesn't seem to be particularly useful, but you can use it to create all kinds of designs that can be used for displacements. So let's just go and convert it. And you can do that via layer and new pattern layer from selection. All this does is creates a new layer that's a pattern design. So new pattern layer from selection. And then I can simply resize this. And you can see as I do that, I can drag this around. This is the pattern. This is the repeated design that's gone across the entire layer. And you can then just drag this down, and I'm going to put it below this image because I want to manipulate it using this displacement feature. So here's the background. Now, obviously not background, but the image, and you've got the pattern. Now, of course, I want to manipulate it. So again, just go down there and select it. As soon as you select it, you'll see you get this bounding box. You can always find it. It's on screen. Now, you can, of course, drag it off over there. You can drag it all. It does occasionally make it hard to find, but you can also do things like this, where you can really squeeze it like that, and then drag this out and maybe drag it this way. And I'm going to go with this one. So something like that to create an interesting displacement. So let's just go back to this, make certain you will select this layer now, and then click here, and that hides and shows the layer. So you can always do that at any point just by clicking there. Well, once you've done that, you can go to filters, and you can go down to distort, and you can go down here to displace. So displace, and in here you've got some functionality. I'm just going to go with the strength, and also I'm going to go with this one, load map from layers beneath. So click that, and now initially it's very subtle. You might not notice any difference. It's 10 pixels. So 10 pixels, but you can then, as you do that, increase it, increase it, increase it. Now you can go there and put 1000. But unfortunately, in this case, and not every case in Affinity Photo, it does allow you to go beyond the limit normally. But in this case, just 512. And you can go backwards there for 512. Now you can see what's happening here. You've got these lines here because that's what if you go back to the pattern, you'll see these lines. So you might not want those. Well, cancel that again, and you can go here and again see this, and you can of course just stretch this out. The great thing about it is that the quality is not such a big deal. You can really sort of stretch it and distort it in all kinds of ways. When it's been used as a displacement map, it's not such a big deal, the end result. So I'm just going to go from very thin lines, but I'm avoiding these lines at the side around the sort of here and here. Okay, now what I can do, I can go back here, click here, make certain you always select that, and then go to filters again, distort, and then displace. And now in here, you can then go here and you can say strength. And of course, if you modify it without clicking one of these methods, it doesn't remember it, unfortunately. It's a feature that I would love to see, that it remembers the last one you used, but it doesn't. So load maps from there. And now you can see you've got this very intense displaced map effect. And you can see then you can drag it there. And that's the range of the strength you can do. Unfortunately, you can't change the angle, and there's no smoothness feature. be really great if there was, but there's no feature for that. When you do it, you need to actually change it via the pattern. And that, I think, is one of the things why the pattern is really more useful than many, because you can at least go back and tweak that. So cancel again. Does mean, of course, you have to go out and then again go back there to make it easy to see. I mean, you don't have to see it. You can actually just manipulate these without actually visually seeing it. But just for this example, I'm showing you this. So you can then rotate it, and you can then create, obviously, a lovely diagonal effect. You can, of course, create combinations of these, and that's another thing you can do as well. But I'm just going to go with this one. And now, again, go back here, click here, select it again, filters. I always have to make certain, quite easy, I go and accidentally work with the pattern, which you can do quite easily. And then you think, oh, that's strange, nothing's changed. So distort, and then down to displace. And with this, again, load map from layers beneath. And the key word is layers. There's layers beneath. So you can actually have multiple layers. So let's just go here, and you can see now you get this effect. And you can create a very intense effect. And of course, you can change the angle of this pattern at any angle. I've just gone for diagonal, but it doesn't have to be diagonal. Of course, it could be anything. And then click apply. And you get that. With displacement, of course, another option is that you can always use effects with it, other effects, but also you can fade this. So you get this result. You might think, well, that's a bit too much. I don't want so dramatic effect. Well, you can always go to layer, and then you can go down here to fade displacement map. Weirdly, it's called displacement map. The filter itself is displace. I find that slightly odd, but still fade displacement map. And you can then see the result of that. So you can see the fade. So you can get a sort of more interesting sort of blurry-ish sort of effect. It's not so intense, doesn't completely wipe the image out, but you can see, you can just change that, push it to the max, go that way, maybe make it very subtle. So you can see then a very subtle sort of line effect they're creating from that pattern design. And you can then go here, and I'm just going to push this up, and you can also go with blend mode. So you can so darken, color burn, but in that case, to actually see the effect, you've got to reduce it down from 100. So just go there, say 42, and you can get an interesting effect like that, and click apply. And you can see the line effect, but it's slightly different, slightly odd. However, what you can also do is you can play a game. You don't have to apply it just once. So you can go over here, filters, you can always repeat it, perfectly reasonable, and that would apply exactly the same effect, exactly the same setting. So if you use 512, that's what it will use next time around. But you can always go back to distort, just there, distort, and then down to displace. In this case, then again, modify strength, load map from layers beneath. Again, it's using the exact same. Though, of course, you could always go and vary it, maybe change the angle. So you can then see, do that, and then you can distort it even more to create a sort of like a very painted effect in this case. Again, cancel that one, because I will do that. Let's just go there, make certain you deselect that again. So that's makes that not, obviously you can see this one makes it a lot easier to manipulate. And of course what you can do, you can rotate it there, rotate it around. And you can see you get an angle there. It just tells you the angle as you rotate it. So you've got it that way now, a different angle. Go back here, the background, put this on, and again, selected, filters, and distort, and displace. And this time, when you apply it, let's just drag there, load map from layers beneath. You can see then you get, obviously now, it's like a crisscross effect, a square result. So you can just see, just maybe not so extreme, but you can see you can create a very different displacement effect, sort of like a, I don't know, a weird sort of rough board, a rough grain texture to your design. You still can see, of course, the face there, just about, and then click apply. And you can do exactly the same as before. You can always go to layer and fade displacement map, and then just manipulate it. Maybe change this, change the blend mode, maybe go for multiply, color burn, maybe lighten, and so on, to create some really interesting visual effects with a mixture of lighten, darken, etc., displacement, blends, and click apply. Okay, let's just put this back to start positioning. You notice one thing, it's very sharp. If you want to add some smoothness or blurriness to it, you can use a blur filter. So with this pattern selected, I'm selecting that, not the background, but the pattern itself. All you need to do is go to Layer, and then down here to New Live Filter Layer, Blur, and you could use one of these other blurs, but I'm going to go with Gaussian Blur. But radial blur, all of them can create some interesting imagery. So Gaussian Blur, select that, and now just drag that over, change the radius. Now at this point, of course, you can't see anything because the image is above it. You can't see any of the changes here, but I'm going to be about 17.6 and preserve alpha. That's the key thing. If you don't select that, you'll end up with a border around it where it seems to be a bit odd. You've got the lines will be in the center, and then you'll have an area that's untouched. You may want that, but that's removes that. Preserve alpha, just turn that on and then close. Close it, and now the pattern has got this Gaussian blur applied. It's not applied to the background. So again, you can just go to the background here, select that, and then go to filters, and then distort, and then go down to displace. Exactly the same as before. Again, go here, strength, you can modify it to your heart's content until you click load map, and then you get that. So you can see now you've got a blurry, sort of smooth lines. They're not so sharp. Of course, great thing about this, they're all live. So you can always change it. So you can go back to it. So cancel that. You might say, oh, the pattern. Don't like the pattern. I want the pattern to be wider, or let's just drag this out. You can just drag it out. Don't have to see it. You can, so it will make bigger bars now. Obviously, if I crunch it in, it will make it thinner. So I'm just creating this, and I can make it as thick like that. And if I want to, I can always see it, something like that. So you've got that sort of visual effect. And the blur, you can do exactly the same. Double click or click. I was double click, but it is just a click, and this will come up. Preserve alpha, and you can just vary it. You can say, oh, you know what, don't want it so blurry, let's put it down to 40, and then close that. So now, background there, go back to this, exactly the same as before. Now, just go to filters, distort, and displace. And then again, lower map there, load map from layers beneath, and you can see now you get a more chunky effect like that. And you can modify this backwards and forwards, of course, to create some interesting distortions here. And of course, you can apply this to all kinds of images, not just obviously this person singing here. So again, cancel. I've got straight lines, and because of course the way the pattern is, you've got just basically a square that is the pattern design. But if you want to distort that, you can create some interesting effects as well. You could distort the actual pattern source, which is that little square, or the sharp square. In this case, if I just get rid of this, you can see the pattern here. If I select it, here's the pattern, this bit. But you can apply effects over the whole entire design if you want. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to deselect everything, and then I'm just going to go for layer and new live filter layer, and you can add other ones. There's of course other ones here, lighting, etc., etc. But I'm going to go with twirl. But liquefy is great. You could use that one. So twirl. With twirl, I can now, and it's applied on top. So let's just change this, tweak this, and you can see it's applied. Unfortunately, it only goes so far, which is a pity. But again, you can do preserve alpha, turn that on, and close. So you've got that. Now this is applied to the whole image. The image, everything. If this was on, just turn that, you can see the effect there, sort of dragging away the mic here. However, I don't want it like that. I want the twirl to be just dragged down here. So just place it there. Now, if I go there, you can see the effect there. Now, let's just turn that off. Again, anytime you want to see things, you just go here, change the visibility. You could go that, say twirl, let's just drag this down onto here, and it drags that onto the pattern. So drag onto the pattern. The effect is that, which you might want a blurred effect. It's up to you, of course. You've got a blurred twirl effect. So you can just vary it. Again, undo, put it above or below. And you could just experiment, just try 6 different things. In that case, no difference at all. Okay, so I've got it above, between the background and the pattern. And now I can just go to background, turn that back on again, layers selected, filters, and down to distort, and then down to displace again. And then just go here, just change this, load map from layers beneath, and you can see now you've got this lovely twirl effect, and click apply. And just undo. Any point, I can just go here, click here, double click. Sometimes appears, sometimes it doesn't. And then you can, of course, change the position. Now, with that active, now with that to see, you can't see it, not particularly easily. And you can move it around, so you might decide to put it over the mic, which is about there. And just change the angle. And like I said, that's as far as it can go. Close it. And again, pattern, you can select that, move this around. And as you can see, as you move that, this changes, the design there changes. And create all kinds of, because of course it's got that image, the image in the pattern, so that will have an effect. So you might get, obviously you want a darker part to create a different displacement, or you want the lighter there. So you can just move it around, just try it out. And you've also got other options. You've got rotate, of course, and you've got shear. So you can have a great, interesting shearing effect as well. Personally, I just keep it more as a rectangle, but you can shear that rectangle as well by just going to this part here, and you can see the cursor changes and you can get that effect. But I'm keeping it just as a square. And again, change Gaussian blur if you want. So again, background, put that on, and again, filters, and again, distort, and displace, exactly the same as before, change strength, and load map from layers beneath. And you've got that effect, and click apply, and so on. You can see you can create literally thousands of distortion effects just from that pattern design. But what you can also do is use a combination of pattern layers as well. You can also use the pattern again. So over here, I've got this pattern, a single layer, but I can duplicate it. So right click and duplicate. Now, this point, of course, exactly the same. But what I can do, I can rotate it. So just click there and rotate. Simple as that. Now, what I can do, let's just go back to the background. It's going to use all of the layers, not just the single layer. So now let's just go to filters again and down to distort, and again, displace. And now if I just go over here, load map from layers, and again, that's the key word, layers, and just drag. And you can see now, instead of what you had before, which was a fairly uniform design, now it's created quite an unusual, really coarse looking effect, but still quite effective if you want a slightly more sort of grungy design. And apply. And again, you can do exactly the same. You've got the option here for layer and fade. So you can go to the fade, and you can see then you can get this sort of like becomes a sort of glass fragmented effect. You can see bits of the image, part of the distortion, but it's like it's cut into the image. And again, you can just modify the fade. You can just go backwards and forwards, maybe use different blend modes, darken, multiply, color burn, lighten, etc. Again, very unusual crystal-like fragmented effect there. And click apply. Well, let's just go back. So I've got this image and I've got the pattern here, and let's just click there. You can see the design. It doesn't look like it's actually doing anything with the second one because you can't see it, but it does use it as an influence to modify. But also, you can go here with this one selected. You can go maybe darken, and you can get effect like that. So let's go with darken now. You can go back and try other ones. I'm just going to go background, and again, filters. I just bring it back so you can see it. Filters, and again, distort and displace. And now let's just do this, strength, load map from layers beneath. And now you can see you get this, a sort of crisscross effect, very sort of slashed effect, backwards and forwards across there. And click apply. Undo again. Again, these are still live, so you can always go to, instead of darken, let's just again deselect that so you can see different results. If I just run through those, so you can see darker colour there, lighter. So lighter colour, you've obviously got a lot lighter here, so displacement will be different. So again, go to background, bring that back on again, filters and distort, and then down to displace. And with that, I can then just change the strength, load map from layers beneath, and you can see then sort of quite a painter-like effect. So you can create some really interesting, just by combining, you just put it to say 82, 80, you can see a sort of more paint-like effect design here now, and click apply. Now, of course, what you can do, you don't have to just use that. You can use 3 or 4 and you can modify the layer. So let's just change this. I can modify this, and with that, right click and duplicate. So I've created another layer, and again, I can then modify this a bit, and you can see now I've got the slashes going obviously diagonally, but also now going up and down. And also, of course, I could then go for duplicate again, and this time I'm just going to rotate it the other way, and you can see now I've got a combination, near enough becomes like a hexagonal like design. But I can go back to the background, so select this, or obviously the original image, bring that back in, and then go to filters, and then distort, and then just down to displace again, and then just drag this over so you can see it, strength, and load map from layers beneath. And you can see that. You can see a very unusual sort of distortion happening there. And again, just change that, reduce it down, maybe put it about there, and click apply. So you get that kind of effect. And you're still using the same basic pattern, which you can go back and modify in countless ways. So again, undo, and again, go to the pattern. Let's just do that. And you can move it around, reposition it, maybe change that, sharpen it, that part, to get a little near enough becomes like pulses there. You can see sort of pulse lines in that effect. And again, you could go maybe with this other one. And as soon as you do that, you can change that, and you can see you get sort of lots of different patterns. You've got the diagonal effect, and now you've got the very fine pulsing lines to create sort of interesting threads throughout that image. And again, background, click there, filters and distort, and then displace. And then let's just go for strength again and load map from layers beneath. And you can see now you get this sort of multiple sort of displacements with the same image, and click apply. Now you can also use these displacements with channels. Channels are one of the great features of Photoshop, Affinity Photo and many other applications, and definitely should not be ignored. So window and down to channels. And the great thing about this is you can apply one displacement map in red and another one in green and another one in blue. So let's just go over here to channels and just click there. Now it's just going to be working in the red. So composite red is selected. All the others are not active. Now you don't have to do that. All you can if you want, you can just make certain it's not editable. You can just do that, but I'm going to show you obviously with just the red visible, but you can just do it purely on making them editable or not. So it'll only be applied to the red channel or the green channel, etc. So now let's just go to filters, and exactly the same as before, filters, go to distort, and then down to displace. And exactly the same thing, you can do this, load map from layers beneath, and now you can see the effect applied like that, and click apply. So you've got that applied just to the red channel. Well, what you can do, go to the green now. Now, I'm just going to go, before I do anything further, I'm just going to go over here, just deselect that. And this pattern, I can change it. I might, let's just remove some of the things. So let's just remove a couple and maybe go with that one. So we've got 3 pattern layers now with all the blend. You could change the blend mode maybe. So now I can go back to the background, click there. And now with the composite green only, I can go up here to filters and distort and displace. So this effect only being applied to the green channel. And again, change the strength, load map from layers beneath, and now you've got this effect applied. And of course you don't maybe apply it to subtle to the green, maybe extreme into the red, and click apply. Well, I now can go here to the composite blue, so I can select that one. Nothing's changed for the blue yet. The red and the green, yes, but the blue totally untouched. So now what I can do, maybe these patterns again, let's just deselect that. And again, I can remove one there. So I've just gone with that, maybe just tweak this and maybe make it wider sort of strokes like that. It's still the same pattern design. You can still go back to it at any point. So I've just stretched it a bit, maybe change the blend mode. Let's just go here and you can see as you do it, something like that. Again, changing that will result in a different displacement effect because you've got some darker images and some lighter parts, which you wouldn't have before. So now I can go back here again, make sense, just click, put that on, make sense you select the layer, that's the key thing. And now again, go to filters and distort and down to displace. And then just apply it. Just say strength there, low map from layers beneath, and you can see now, again, you can change the strength, maybe go the other way and click apply. And then once you've done that, what you can see is now if I click up here, just put it back to RGB, or of course if you're using different color modes, you might be CMYK, etc. That would be a different set. Just click here and resets it. And now you've got this really weird color combination. So you've got the reds, the greens and the blues, different settings for each to create a much more sort of unusual visual effect with those channels. And of course you could go through this again and again and again and modify it and distort it, apply different effects, change the patterns and so on to build up a very complex distorted image using different colors. I've been using the displace as a filter, but also you can use it as a live layer effect. So I now just go over here with the layer selected over here, layer, and just go down here to live filter layer or new live filter layer, distort and displace. In there you can then just drag that across, preserve alpha, you can turn that on and just drag again and again load map from layers beneath. Click that and now you can see the effects there. And you can then tweak this, modify the strength, exactly the same as before. And you can see preserve alpha, turn that off, you can get a nice frame effect there. Or click there and you can see another sort of frame, but this time obviously darker as you do that. Just drag that across. And I'm just going to leave it there. The great thing about this, it is also live. All these features here are now live, so you can change it. So close it, and then you can see now over here, you've got the background there, and you can see a displacement map. Again, it's called displacement map, even though the filter is called displace. Very strange, but that's the way they've done it. But say you decide, oh, you know what? Let's click there. I don't like that pattern, so I can remove that one. I can remove that one. So I end up with, say, this one, and maybe I can tweak it. I can rotate it. I can do a whole load of things. I can maybe create a slightly different design there. Maybe go here, maybe use difference. You can see you get a very, very unusual displacement then. Okay. Go back to this background, bring this back in again. Now, you'll notice what's nothing. Still using the old one. It will keep it in memory. It's got that. It doesn't, unfortunately, update automatically. Be nice if it did, but it doesn't when you modify layers below. But again, you can just go here. You've got the displacement here. So click there, brings up this panel. And now, load map from layers beneath. You have to click this. So as soon as you do that, now you can see that effect thing. So it would be nice just for an auto feature there, but it doesn't do it. So you have to click load map from layers beneath any point, and then now you can see the effect applied like that. And again, you can just change the strength, and also you've got blend modes. So you can run through, maybe use lighten. You can see as you do that, maybe go with overlay and so on, or reduce the opacity. Just reduce it down a bit. You can see, just put it down like that. Say it's 75% or 77 and close. And at any point you can modify it and you can go back to these patterns, just change it again and again, just tweak these, move these around, and then just click there and bring this up again, and then low map from layers beneath, and then you can see a different image. Again, modifying the setting for the strength, and also just clicking here, load map from layers beneath. And anytime you change it, you can just change it here, come back in here and do that and close. And there you have it. Very quick way, creating some really weird and wonderful displace effects applied to an image in Affinity Photo. Now, of course, this sort of thing can also be applied to text, to shapes, and a whole lot more. Another thing you can do with displacements, live filter layer displacements is that you can go over here and simply select this layer. It's a live filter layer and it's like any layer. You can duplicate it. So just go here, right click and duplicate. As soon as you've done that, you get 2. You could go for 3. So let's just right click again and duplicate. And you can see the effect is then multiplied. But also, great thing about it, they're all independent. So you can always go here and double click, or click I should say, I always say double click, but click, and then change the strength for that one. Again, load map from layers beneath, got that, and close. And you can go this one, bring that one up, and then just go to strength again, load map from layers beneath, because you may have changed some of the layers. So let's just change that. But also you can go for here, just go for vivid light, say. So you can vary the blend mode between the two. Close that. Now, I can go to the pattern. So pattern, this time I'm just going to change the pattern. Of course, I could display it as well, just so you can see it. And something like that. Maybe change the angle, like that. Move it around there. Maybe change blend mode for this time and go for something like that. So this one using hue, get effects like that. And you can go back to any of these displacement maps, bring this panel up and load maps from layers beneath. Click there and then change the strength. Ooh. Key thing to remember, whenever you do it, is go back to the actual layer. There's the layer. You need to always select the layer. If you don't, you're just working on the wrong layer. Again, go back here again, bring this up, click it. Just click there. I always say double click. When I say that, I mean just click it. And now, load map from layers beneath. Now you've got a different design that I've just changed, and you can then modify the strength, and it will use that when you're using the displacement. So you can get a variety of different effects, and exactly the same. You can just go through here, maybe vivid light, go with hard mix, pin light, all those sort of things. Change the opacity, maybe make it up to the maximum, 100%, and close the panel. And there you have that design. Got multiple displacement maps. But even better is, if you want, you can save this to your assets panel. So these patterns, everything here can be saved. Now, what you will do when you save it, you're saving this background image, of course. So this one, the actual original image. But the thing is, you can always replace it. So with this, all these, you've got displacement, so on and so on. Simply go to Window, Assets, and in here, you can go to Assets. Right, this right side menu, Add from Selection. And now it will add it. Takes a few seconds to process, and there you have it, just added there. Now, and I'm just going to remove these. Let's just remove all these. Now I don't need all those. So everything's gone. You're back to, say, another image, another effect you want to add, all those kind of things. But you've got it here. So at any point, if you want, you can simply just drag this over. So just go there, drag it. We'll eventually onto the actual thing, not onto here, onto layers. And you can see as you do that, move it around. Doesn't matter particularly because I'm going to remove it, because all I wanted were the effects. So it's a great way of creating an effect library via the Assets panel, which can always be found Assets here in the window menu. So now what I can do, I've got this background here, but let's just expand this out. And you can see it unfortunately doesn't store the patterns. It's a bit weird, doesn't particularly matter. It does mean that when you use the displacement maps, you're using what's stored in the memory of that thing. Now, perhaps I didn't select it all right. Maybe I should have grouped it or something. Sometimes when you do these assets that you have to group them. But anyway, so you've got them. And what you can do, you can then simply select all those layers and then just drag it to the background. Just drag it down and place it there. And now they're on there. I can just remove that one now. And now the effect is applied to your latest image, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the same image. Obviously, I use the same image in this case, but it's now applied there. Now, unfortunately, the patterns are gone. So if you then go in there, you can just click again and you can modify the strength, but you will not be able to click load map from layers beneath because there's nothing there now. But you can, of course, always bring in a new pattern design and use that, maybe a circular design or something else. I've used lines in this, but literally millions and millions of other pattern designs can be used. Circular designs, gradient designs, anything can be used to create this displacement map. And again, close it and you can see now you've got this. And again, if you want, you can just remove them and it's back to that original image. But it can be any image or maybe a shape or something else. So if you want, let's just go and do that. Just select the shape. There's a vector shape like that. Just something very simple, just added there. And exactly the same as before. I can select all those and I can duplicate them. I can say duplicate, so it would still be on the other one as well. But I can simply also just drag up to the star and now expand out and make certain they're all active. Let's just click there and you can see now displacement map has been applied. Because these ones have got the preserve, if I just click on there again, you can see it's got preserve alpha. If I deselect that, then you would see that. And I'd have to do that for all of them. So just click there and bring that up, preserve alpha, and you can see you get a different effect when you change the preserve alpha, but it's applied to a star. You can apply it to text, so you could create some grungy text effects in exactly the same approach, using all the same things with these displacement, all that can be stored away over here in the assets for future use. If you've got any thoughts and questions about this, please put in the comments below. Also, a like or dislike, always appreciated. Got thousands of other videos on the channel related to Affinity Photo as well as Affinity Designer, and this can also be added in to Affinity Designer. So if you've got both, you've got the full suite of Affinity Photo Designer and Publisher, you can also simply go and use File and Edit in Designer and just use the effects in Designer as well to just tweak them as well. It's still live even in Designer, even though Designer does not have displacement maps, etc. It will have it just via this.